All right, so now we're going to bring in our dynamic duo, our cybersecurity pros. Worked with both of these guys for a very long time. Won't say how long, but Richard since his RusNet days. That was back in the 1990s, and then I know Dan when he was in Michigan government, and that's been a while too since you did that, right, Dan? I got you muted, so unmute.
Yeah, it's been 2014 I left Michigan government, so it's been 8 years.
Wow.
Hard to believe, yes. So anyway, I like to get these guys in from time to time just so they can scare the pants off us. But more importantly, too, we're moving into the holiday shopping season. So I wanted to kind of start with that. There's going to be a whole lot of scam artists out there trying to get you to spend your money on them rather than the presents that you think you're buying for the friends and family. So let's talk a little bit about that first. Richard or Dan, whoever wants to take it first.
Well, I only want to go first because I want to comment on your Kris Kringle outfit.
You like that?
Great.
I got the red, and it's not for that school down south because we crushed them over the weekend. So, but it's more of a Christmassy kind of thing, you know.
Good for you. When I think of the holiday scams, right, there's always some new ones. And obviously there's a rush to buy gaming systems and whatever the latest hot thing is. I haven't seen any news about what that is this year. But you'll start getting offers for them, very simple ones. Click here to get it. Or the ones that are almost fooling me lately are the ones that are, hey, we're going to give you a rebate on this thing you ordered. And, check the invoice. And you go, I didn't order anything. I'm going to check on that and make sure it's not
I get one of those something. Almost every day now.
Absolutely. You check your spam box, you probably have even more that Google or whoever caught. And those are nasty, right? They are going to, most likely give you something malicious. It's going to affect your computer, turn it into a bot, etc. Quite often they're actually just deleted. Are you stupid enough to click on links in things that I send you? If you are, you've self-identified as a mark, and now I'm going to, scam you into something or other. So don't be a mark. Just, you can ignore all of those. If you're like me with the Huntington Bank, every time they text me, they say, we'll never text you, unsolicited stuff or ask for your credentials when we text you, which in itself is a little annoying because I just did something and you texted me. That's the way it's supposed to work. But that said, better to be on the safe side as good companies are. My number one shopping practice is to always buy from the same place. I know this goes against the grain of supporting the small consumer, especially since I don't sell my latest book on Amazon, but I tend to go to Amazon first. I need a new Xbox for my daughter. I buy it from Amazon, because generally they have, close to the best deals. You can trust them. They've got some capability to refund you if you never receive the product, etc.
Free shipping too.
And free shipping if you're a Prime member. Yeah. How about you, Dan? You got any hot tips?
Yeah, you nailed a couple of them I was going to talk about, but first start off by just being cautious. I mean, I think a lot of the tips that people have used in the past, you may just remember that, as you said, the scammers are out there using reputable websites. I do the same, Richard. Use Amazon. I think the challenge too is when you see the deals on these other websites, it's getting your credentials. It's obviously that's a big challenge, so watch out. But if you use whether you use Walmart, like actually Walmart's actually got better deals this year than Amazon. So I don't know. That's all Target, over the place.
Target's good too. Yeah,
Target's got some great websites. But even the smaller websites, if you do, one of the things I just remind people, I say, I know some people swear by using debit cards. I use credit cards. Make sure you're checking your basically your bill every month, and I still get the paper copies. And I know a lot of times people like to go all digital, and that they say we're killing trees. But whatever you do, make sure you go through the process. For me, it's just an automatic check when I get that in the mail. It's more of a process thing for me. I walk through and literally have that, because if it's all electronic, I find for me, I don't necessarily always go back and do the double check that I need to be doing. So that's just the process that I use. But going through and if if there's a charge on there, and believe me, this happens at least 4 or 5 times a year. I get charges that either I get double charged or I get some charge that is not legitimate for whatever reason, and go back and whether it's Discover, American Express, MasterCard, they all will take it off. So make sure you're going back through those. But online, some of the basics we've all heard over the years. Look for SSL. I think most websites have that now. The little the lock, if you will, the gold lock on your site. If they're not, encrypting it, it really shouldn't even be out there. But certainly some websites don't, or an error pops up. Watch out for those. Check your bank accounts. If you do use debit cards, the money's going to go straight out, and so that's a challenge. But the nice thing about credit cards, of course, is you get the ability to dispute it. The money's not gone. Generally, they're going to credit your account right back, and so having that in place really is a good step to have. I think the other thing beyond using reputable websites is when something seems too good to be true, it probably is too good to be true. And so when I've seen a number of deals this weekend, again, usually from links, but sometimes they appear to be from a reputable website. An email comes in your Gmail account or Yahoo, whatever personal account you've got, or work account if you're using that. Hopefully not for shopping, but the message comes in and it's supposedly from Facebook or supposedly from Amazon or supposedly from Walmart or whoever you think it's from. But if you look closer, it's like the real address is frank9742@gmail.com or something. It's not really from Walmart. So they're basically spoofing you. It appears to be from Walmart, but it's not really from Walmart. So go in and look closer at those and see where those messages really coming from. And oftentimes, those really great, fantastic deals are not actually from who you think they're from. And that's where they'll get you to click sometimes.
And do the rest of us a favor and click, identify them as spam to your email provider, and a couple of those, and they will be blocked everywhere. It'll be great.
Yeah.
A couple of things before Matt leaps in, I want to point out, I never use my debit card for shopping online. I use a credit card that has a low, like a balance kind of thing, where I got one that's $500. That way, if they do hit me, it's minimal. But then, as you said, I think you're responsible for the first $50, but after that, the credit card company will take care of it. Yeah, if you use your debit card, they could take everything you got in your account, right, in your bank account. So,
yep.
The other one was my sister. I was at her house for Thanksgiving, and she clicked on one of those links from Lake Michigan Credit Union or something that was a phishing scam. And then I kind of helped her get through that. So I sent her to the bank the next morning to make sure everything was canceled and everything was changed. And she admitted to me, yeah, I see this all the time. We'll never send you this and ask for your login and all that stuff. Well, then why don't you do it? She goes, I don't know. I can't explain it. But anyway, don't fall for that. Sorry, I had to just throw those 2 points in.
And with your bank account, keep an eye out for those very suspicious charges of $1, which when you sign up for a new service, they test your credit card. But after your credit card and identity has been stolen, it ends up in these dark forums, and people will hand out samples of the data they have, and the acquirer will check them and see how many actually can get that $1 through. And those are good, right? They might be worth $2,000 a piece. So they pay $200 and get a whole collection of them and then start mining them for riches.
Yep.
And there are some free or very close to free identity theft monitoring services you can sign up for too, right? Do you recommend people do that?
I don't. I think it's no. That said, I use Credit Karma, which I'm pretty sure is free, and they will alert you to a bunch of attempts to check your credit rating and all the rest. And it's valuable anyways, so that's good. But I certainly wouldn't pay for one because you can get the free ones, and Credit Karma is very reputable.
And so this is one of the first times I think on this show that I've actually disagreed with Richard on this. It's actually a twist. I don't pay for any of mine either, Richard. So I'm I'm cheap as well, no. But I
thrifty is a better word.
I do say this though, you know, a bunch of people here in Michigan were hit with a Flagstar Bank, and they sent out a letter for everyone in my family. I mean, I actually still get credit protection from the OPM breach, or I had a clearance.
Right.
And so way back when it was 3 years and 5 years. Now it's 10 years. I'm hearing it may be forever. So I do have, you know, my wife and I and my kids under 18 are still covered by that, but which is one child now. But for my older kids, they were hit by the Flagstar one. And this is one tip for everybody. You know, a lot of times people think, well, I'm just going to automatically, you know, whatever it was, Flagstar Bank or any other data breach, I automatically get that protection. You got to sign up. You got to actually take that letter. Flagstar just offered 2 years free credit protection for everybody. And my son just signed up for that. And so, I mean, I think if it's free and they're offering it to you,
yeah,
I do think it's good, because it does give, you know, it was with Equifax, I believe. And, you know, it's a good service. I won't go into the details of that, but
yeah.
When you do get those letters, and almost everybody watching this has probably gotten one of those letters in the last year or 2 or 3, is make sure you go ahead and take advantage of it and sign up. And then whether you want to continue that or just disable it, I do think I agree with Richard. There are some free services out there, but you do get some of these that the banks give to you for free for a couple of years are worthwhile. And there's some things that you get with that. There's some checks you get with that you don't get with the free one. So I'll just throw that out.
Okay. I totally agree with you. So you can't disagree with me anymore. But I do monitor some of the business models of those companies. And of course, Norton LifeLock is probably the biggest. And I'm only interested in them because, you know, I track what happened to Symantec and the consumer antivirus they had, Norton. Obviously, you know, the company itself just failed miserably, just was not doing a good job for its customers, and it was broken up into many pieces. Everybody got rich except for the employees and the customers. But some of the assets ended up in a public company called Norton LifeLock. They have the highest revenue per employee of any cybersecurity company I track, $1.5 million.
Wow.
And it's because whenever there's a breach, they sell, you know, a per user, you know, solution for Norton, for LifeLock to the breach company. So Flagstar Bank or whoever goes to them and says, oh my gosh, we're going to be fined. You know, it's going to cost all this money. We're going to pay you $90 per user. So if they have 1 million users, it's going to pay $90 million to LifeLock. I don't know what the actual numbers are. That's how they make their money. Because like Dan said, only 1% of the people who get those letters in the mail actually sign up. So you don't actually have to do much for them.
I've got hit with Capital One card when they got breached a year or so ago. And I signed up for that immediately. And every now and then I'll make a charge where it's not in the U.S. It's I'm buying something from somebody somewhere that's outside the U.S. and boop, they flag me right away, and I make sure that, did you do this? You know, so it's useful somewhat, but I'm not paying for it.
Can I rant about payments for a second? Because in this day and age of hundreds of different ways to quickly and easily send money to people like PayPal, Zelle, Venmo, it just seems like hundreds of ways to just transfer money to anybody you want in the world. They don't work at all if you're a global organization like I am. So I've just hired a new intern in Pakistan. Pakistan has barred all use of PayPal, which of course includes Venmo. My intern's 17 years old. He doesn't have a bank account. There's no way to send him money. Right now, we've settled on Zelle, which of course has all of its own issues associated with it. But banks like to turn that responsibility over to Zelle. And finally figure out, okay, I'm going to send, you know, the $80 a week I pay this intern in Pakistan. I'm going to send it to his uncle in the United States. And then his uncle's going to somehow get the money to Salar. And it is just so frustrating, you know, signed up and everything. And nope, they're blocking Salar's uncle's phone number. It's just like, why? And use Bitcoin. Oh, yeah. You go to a Bitcoin exchange and it's illegal to use Bitcoin for payments outside the US. So what's the point?
Yeah, there's one other point I wanted to bring up. It's a great story there, Richard. I hadn't really thought of that, but the other thing I just mentioned, when you think about, you know, the challenge of payments and, you know, and background checks. I don't know if you're background checking your employee in India, but when you think about your kids and like one thing, I know several people who've actually, somebody took out credit in their name. They were minors and they had used their social security cards and actually opened up accounts in their names. I know several people that it's happened to. And again, one of the benefits of actually, you know, having that credit protection and looking that if your kids' social security numbers and things are in there, again, you're giving that information to them, Richard. So I understand that the dark side of that, if they got hacked, now your information's out that way. But on the other hand, these people were able to find out that, you know, they didn't even know that their children's social security numbers had been hacked. And they found out when they used some of the credit protection. And in this case, one of the people, they actually had, you know, a child account. They had a juvenile account in a bank, and that information had somehow been misused. So I mean, the point is, you know, don't just forget your kids, even though they may not have credit cards and they may not be out there with debit cards, even if they just have savings accounts, and you know, maybe they're joint with their parents or something. Sometimes I know people that have found that their kids had their identity stolen.
Yeah, and that's a travesty because you start out adult life, with this pristine credit record, right? And if I know that my kids, their mother issued them credit cards, so you know she'd track it and tell them not to use it except for emergencies. But that meant that over time they got to take advantage of her good payment history on the credit card. So by the time they're 18 or whatever age to open their own bank account, they had credit ratings of 800. At the same time, I was, you know, in trouble financially, and I figured my best defense against identity theft is nobody could open a credit card in my name because I had such horrible credit.
It happens.
Yep.
Well, that's sort of like the best way to protect your password is to keep forgetting your password, so you have to keep making new ones.
That's it. Yep. Refresh them all the time.
Well, I wanted to ask one question here is after the holidays are over, we're all going to be doing our taxes again. And how prevalent is this scam of somebody filing a tax return in your name, sort of forging a W-2 and you know, claiming a refund? This happened to me personally. Well, it happened to my daughter actually when I was still claiming her as a dependent on income tax, and I got the runaround from the IRS that I couldn't claim her as a dependent, so I was going to owe $1,100 more in taxes. And it turns out they wouldn't tell me why, and they finally did tell me why once I reached a human and not the automated system, that somebody else had filed a tax return in her name. Does that happen a lot?
Wow. Well, does it happen to anybody else here?
No.
Okay, 25% of the time.
Jesus,
I'm doing the math in my head. One of 4. No, it does happen a lot. Last year seemed to be a surge of them, and I think it happens most when it's very simple tax form, right? You got one employer and they've been withholding. Of course, you over withhold like everybody does, because ideally, in a perfect world, you would try and withhold just enough or owe $100. But everybody likes the enforced savings of giving extra money to the government to spend and put back into the banks, etc. And then it's like you're loaning them money, and then they have to give you a return, and you can file really early, right? You know, as soon as you can generate that W-2, you can file, and it's perfect. If they know your employer, you know where your paychecks are coming from, then it's extremely simple to do that, and it's a travesty that they do.
And I've seen that as well, but you know, it hasn't happened to me. But I tell you what did happen to me was the with UIA here in Michigan during the COVID. You know, there was literally, I think, hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people in Michigan this happened to. But you know, people filed unemployment in my name, and I got a card in the mail.
Wow.
I mean, they never were able to actually do anything with it, but I got a card in the mail. You know, a debit card saying, you know, here's your. They were getting ready to load up the card and everything, and it was all fraudulent. I said, I had a lot of conversations with my friends at the state of Michigan about, guys, you should know I continue to pay taxes here. I mean, can the tax, can the Michigan Department of Treasury talk to the people over at the Health and Human Services and the other organizations? I won't mention all the names, but yeah, it definitely does happen, and it happened to a lot of people here in Michigan around the UIA.
Sometimes government bureaucracy is a good thing, right? You don't want to have a super efficient, perfect IRS, for instance, right? So it's nice that they have roadblocks in inertia, but other times it would be nice if they all talk to each other.
In the case of UIA, they also hired a lot of temporary employees because there were so many people, including me. I was the sole proprietor. I got some unemployment, thank God, because it was, everything just dried up for a year, right? But then they didn't keep them around that long. I mean, they kept them around for 18 months, 2 years. But I don't know how well trained they were. A lot of issues with UIA,
Well, I've actually heard, I shouldn't go into too much details, but some of the people they hired, they didn't do proper background checks on, and they were some of the part of the problems. They were actually
insiders. Yes, it's always the insiders, right?
So. I mean, I happen to know that's a fact. So I'm not going to go into the details on that, but yeah, some of the hires were probably not the best choices.
Okay, Matt.
All right. Well, that said, we've kind of wrapped up the personal scams and alerts. What's going on in corporate America these days? Is it still ransomware everywhere?
Ransomware for sure, but it's kind of falling below the radar unless it's a really good, juicy one, because it's so common. It's just like, to me, and you all know that I take a jaundiced view of the victims. I do a lot of victim blaming in the ransomware world, because falling victim to ransomware means you're definitely doing something wrong, right? And at the end of the day, you're doing something wrong that, all of us here learned in the 90s at the latest about backups and the importance of having good backups and the regular schedule. You back up every 24 hours, you back up every week, you back up every month. You keep the monthly ones forever in a safe offsite in case there's a fire. And in a modern organization where you just click a few buttons and everything's backed up to a cloud server, and you can recover from it almost instantaneously as long as you got internet connection. There should be no excuse for going, oh my God, we're down, folks, and we can't, in my case, print your book for 3 weeks because all of our systems have been compromised and we can't get the data back because we're negotiating with the ransomware guys. All of that would just simply go away if you had a good disaster recovery solution in place.
Dan?
Yeah, I would just say that, the numbers continue to just be, unbelievable. I mean, it's just the number of health organizations being hit is probably the greatest right now. But the numbers, I know I saw some numbers from, I like to read the Black Fog report. I don't know if you read that one at all, Richard, but I think they do a pretty good job. There's a number of other companies that come out with regular reports. Verizon's got some great reports. There's a number of others. And, to the tune of August being the second worst on record. They're saying that October was the worst on record. So I again, different ways you can count, and these are publicly reported. So it's always a caveat of you don't know how much is going on that's not getting reported. Thus, there's a lot of government move to make sure that there's more and more regulation around reporting ransomware breaches. Love to hear Richard's view on that. But I think that's going to be coming. We already have that in the banks. You're going to start seeing that in more and more industries. But some of the numbers are just unbelievable. I'm talking just the major big ones. And Richard's right; those are the ones that are getting in the papers. But big hospital in Paris hit for $10 million ransom. Shut down NHS in the UK. A lot of hospital, big, huge breaches in October related to the supply chain and talk about literally millions of records of health records of Americans being basically released as part of, it's not just ransomware and encrypting the data, which Richard's right about, but it's also when they get in, a lot of times they'll sell the data. It's a double hit or a triple hit. triple play, if you want, whatever you want to call it. I mean, the bottom line is sometimes they do have the basic ransom, and then they'll also, sometimes sell the data on the dark web, and they'll also hit you again and say, if you don't pay, we're going to release this data out to the public. So, I mean, it continues to be, just really devastating for organizations. And I keep thinking, for 19, 20, 21, 20, it can't get worse. And I think 22 is going to turn out to be worse than 21, which was worse than 20, which was worse than 19. So it just confounds me that it can continue to happen, but it continues to happen. Yep. And there's a lot of reports on this. It's really, really devastating for a lot of companies.
Yep. Australia has been hammered by, companies that should know better, right? Big consulting companies, banks, healthcare providers, and Australia responded with some major legislation requiring that reporting, for instance. So, and Australia is kind of cutting edge, right? If there's one Western country that has an efficient government, I'd say it's Australia, where the people trust their government and everything kind of works. And besides that, the government in 1995 created a mandatory savings plan for Australia. And unlike the US, which created our Social Security net, was that back in the New Deal days?
Yeah.
They just left all that money in a big pot that Congress could just dip into anytime they want. Therefore, there is no money in that pot, and it's completely funded from new receipts, and left us where we are today. In Australia, they put in all these bars to keep their parliament from ever touching that money. The value inside their retirement fund for all Australian citizens is more than their gross domestic product. It's probably twice that now. So they've got billions, maybe $1 trillion in there, guaranteeing some sort of safety net for people when they retire.
You guys, let me just give you 30 seconds or 20 seconds of just some of the ones that are getting hit. Give some people some idea of what we're talking about. This was all just in October, and I'm not going to read all of them, but Electricity Company of Ghana, which basically runs all electricity in Ghana. Ferrari, you had driving fast cars. Cymex Defense, Common Spirit, Douglas County. I'm not sure exactly where Douglas County. It's not Michigan, but it's somewhere. Hartnell College, Bank of Brazil, Indianapolis Housing Agency, Saskatchewan Gynecology Clinic, IDware, ESCOM, Johnson Fitness and Wellness, Pinnacle, State Bar of Georgia, Mars Area School District, Hibbert Group, Markel, Kingfisher Insurance. I'm skipping through them. I'm only going about every other one. Whitmore University, Massey Stores, it goes on and on. Tata Power. These are some big organizations. Ecuador Armed Forces Organization, AT&T, ForceNet, a bunch of others. So there is a long list of, and those are just the major ones. Like I think, talking a couple 100,000 or more. Like I said, this was just October, and November's hasn't even come out yet. So,
and here's the litmus test, Dan. Have you ever, in all of your experience, both within, the Governor's Council on Cybersecurity and, in your short-term or long-term at a vendor selling security awareness tools, and now at a major security consulting company, have you ever talked to any one of those? Has there ever been a deal in place? We're going to help these guys out with their security.
For those ones that are listed,
except for AT&T, obviously, everybody talks to them at some point.
These ones I have. Douglas County, I think I may have talked to at some point, but I have talked to some people that show up on some of these lists, but it's very rare, very rare. To your point, and I will say this, that the ones that are that are doing a good job preparing and getting ready. I mean, we have responded to a large number of incidents, working with our partners as well. And there's, by and large, most of them that we work with do not pay, but there are some that we know that do. So,
message learned: the cybersecurity industry has barely scratched the surface of things that they can do to help people.
I agree, totally agree, 100%.
Okay. Well, we are coming down to the end of the show, so it's shameless plug time. So, Richard and Dan, why don't you tell folks how they can reach out to you? What's the best way?
Well, my shameless plug is that for Cyber Monday, I'm discounting all of cybersecurity yearbooks going back to 2020. So you finally get the current version for only $39 by going to itharvest.com/shop. There you go. And you've got the original.
See, that's what you get. This is an older version, but chock full of great information.
This is the newer one. Even more information. And the one coming out in June is going to be amazing. So we've got all sorts of big plans for it.
Okay.
And just saw Richard's online version of that, which is very impressive. So talk to Richard. Highly recommend that. I would just say you can reach me on LinkedIn, Dan Lohrmann, LOHRMENN. Lohrmann on Cybersecurity is my blog at Government Technology Magazine. And our company is Presidio, so presidio.com. Feel free to reach out. Happy to connect with you.